Tennessee is set to host a massive target for the transfer portal on Tuesday. What the Volunteers must do in order to secure his commitment to Rick Barnes and the Tennessee basketball team. That and more each Monday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Vols here on a Monday morning. Appreciate you guys for being here and beginning your new week with us right here on Locked On Vols. Big shout outs to LinkedIn Jobs, where you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Shout out to you everydayers for making this show what it is. A mailbag edition of the show is coming up tomorrow, so get in those questions, those comments, those concerns, whatever you guys may have at _Caner at Locked On Vols. We'll answer them on tomorrow's show. We've got a fun show to get into today. Chaz Lanier is going to take an official visit to Tennessee. What does that mean? What does Tennessee need to do in order to reel in his commitment? Grant Ramey of VolQuest.com is going to join us here in a couple of seconds to break that down. With Tennessee's SEC championship in the regular season for baseball over the weekend, of course, sharing it with Kentucky. Man, it's incredible when you sit back and think about how much an all-everything school actually means. We're going to kind of break down that and just the growing success of the Tennessee brand across campus, not just in the big sports. That's in segment number 2. And then we'll touch base on Tennessee's sweep of South Carolina over the weekend, what this means, and what the outlook is for Tennessee entering the SEC tournament in Hoover and moving forward to the regional play. All that and more coming up here on your Monday show. You can watch us, listen to us, subscribe to us, download us all for free wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. So let's talk a little Chaz Lanier. Let's talk about his official visit coming to Tennessee on Tuesday, and we'll do that. Let's check in with Grant Ramey. Grant, it was BYU on Sunday. It's Kentucky today, and it's supposed to be Tennessee coming up tomorrow. The official visit tour for the NCAA transfer portal for basketball, the hottest target still out there, Chaz Lanier. Expected to make his way to Knoxville. And fingers crossed, you hope all this happens because that's just how the nature of the beast is. But he's supposed to be here on Tuesday, and Tennessee was always supposed to be the final stop. Is that correct?
To my understanding, Tennessee was always A, going to get a visit, and B, likely going to be that final stop. And I do think that's a big deal to be that last visit. And Tennessee would be, assuming he gets to Knoxville on Tuesday, he would be the last visit before the recruiting quiet period begins, the dead period. There's about a 2-week window, May 22nd, I believe, to June 1st or June 2nd, something like that, where it's a dead period. So they're getting them in. And portal recruiting is a little bit different than prep recruiting in terms of visits, where it's not a 2-day, 3-day, whatever official visit weekend, where it's all long drawn out and all this stuff. It is from one school to the next. So you do run a risk trying to get that last visit because you don't want him to commit before he gets to your campus, which is always a possibility and always a risk that you're taking. But the fact that you get him and then you go straight into a dead period, if you get him on campus on Tuesday, it feels like that should help Tennessee in this kind of, I don't know if it's a bidding war or whatever this race is for Chaz Lanier at this point.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, I think it was actually Austin Price who made the good point, so good for him on the VolQuest podcast last week. It's truly on what he covets more, and we don't know. You go to this G League Elite Series, you get feedback. It looks like he's not an NBA player right now. So in his mind, do you want to go cash in right now if you're not going to be an NBA player? Maybe. Or maybe they said, hey, you don't play good defense. Well, Rick Barnes would be very appealing in that regard if you want to go and try to increase your stock, play better defense, and be a better prospect this time next year. I think it's truly interesting on what his mindset is right now, because I think that can dictate kind of where he goes. And if this truly is a quote unquote bidding war, I think Tennessee can offer a very competitive, package for him. But at the end of the day, I mean, you see some of those numbers out there and it's just crazy. And I have a hard time believing Tennessee or some of these other schools that even come close to that.
Yeah, and it does 100%, I think, depend on that feedback that he got and kind of where he is. Because if the feedback was you need to make your money now, because things didn't go well at that G League Elite camp, that's one thing. If you got feedback that, hey, you got a spot in this league, you got enough talent to be a guy that can play in this league and make your money, that's one thing. I mean, if it's a straight up money chase, I don't think Tennessee has a great shot at it, to be honest. And I don't think that means Tennessee's not willing to pay players and not willing to play the NIL game. They've shown that they're willing to do that. They've adapted, they've adjusted just like everybody else. I do think there is a sentiment that's kind of widely viewed that Rick Barnes wants some of the guys that have been with him the longest, like a Zakai Ziegler, like a Jemai Mashak, like you name it, the guys that are in the program. And he wants them to be the guys that, get their share. And I don't think they want to bring in a guy that he immediately becomes far and away the highest paid player in the locker room. I think that's kind of the sentiment. So it does come down to, it feels like it comes down. Now, I've heard him talk once, and it was a No Ceilings NBA podcast, Chaz Lanier, that is. And it was interesting that he said he wanted to go to the G League Elite camp and show off his defense. And he wanted to prove himself on that end of the floor. And everything he said sounded like he came out of a Rick Barnes basketball, factory in terms of what his mindset seemed to be and where he seemed to be. So that was interesting. But it comes down to, it feels like, is this kid looking for money or is this kid looking for fit? Because fit-wise, he's from Nashville. Tennessee's been saving a space for him. Tennessee doesn't save a space for anybody. It feels like the puzzle's all the way put together. It's just missing one piece, and that's Chaz Lanier.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the way this roster and this everything's kind of been built after hitting reset and starting over this offseason, it looks like there's one missing piece, and if you plug in Chaz Lanier, that's a really, really good piece that you can do some damage. However, say Tennessee doesn't land Chaz Lanier, you still miss that one quote-unquote piece, but still a pretty solid and competitive roster you put together. Of course, you've added 3 players already from the transfer portal. You bring back a core nucleus, and Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Mashak and some others. What do you like about this roster and the pieces that have already been added this transfer portal cycle?
I like starting with Zakai. I mean, if you got Zakai Ziegler in your program going into his senior year, I mean, he's been the heart and soul, and he's been a leader on this team. But now it's literally his program. He's the guy. If that's the starting place, you're in a pretty good spot. Jemai Mashak, same thing. The defense he brings, the versatility he brings, what he can do, how much he's grown during his time in Tennessee, that's great. Darlin Stone-Dubar, the Hofstra wing, feels like he kind of replaces some of that Josiah Jordan-James role in terms of, being a wing scorer, being a guy who can kind of go inside out if he has to, can help you down low, maybe be a stretch four if he has to be. And then obviously losing Jonas Adu hurts and losing Tobe Walker hurts. But, Felix Okpara, blocks per game last year, fouls per 40 minutes. Like, he can help you there, and maybe he can stay on the floor a little bit longer. He's not going to score like Jonas did, but he's going to protect the rim better probably than Tobe did. So it's a little bit of a, you take what you can get, and they think he can help them a lot. And then Igor Milicic, the 6'10 Charlotte transfer, he's going to be, he gives you that size at 6'10". It's going to be a different look because he's going to step out and shoot it from the three-point line. He has the last couple of years like 250 times, something like that. So it's going to look different, and it looks like they've helped build a competitive roster through the portal. It's just a matter of what do they get from here.
It's interesting. I feel like some guys have left the program, among other things, but one reason being they want to stretch their game a little bit and shoot from the outside if you're a big man, and it's what right. Igor is going to do here in Knoxville. Last thing out the door, man, you kind of look at what's going on right now, baseball this last weekend, what softball's doing right now, what women's tennis did over the weekend, what golf is doing right now, of course, football, what basketball did. I mean, everything school kind of gets thrown around there by Danny White a lot, but when you sit down and look at it, I mean, it truly is impressive right now where Tennessee Athletics Department is right now. How impressive is it the job that Danny White and these coaches are doing, and what's obviously can take it to that next level to truly be, the best athletic department in the nation?
It's wild. It's kind of crazy to sit back and watch it. I went to school in Tennessee 2006 to 2010, and I covered as a student journalist a lot of Tennessee baseball where you could sit out and you could count the number of people in the stands for a midweek game because the team was just not very good and they were playing a bad opponent, and it felt like, they hadn't been to Omaha since 2005, and that wasn't that long ago when I was in school. But it felt like a million miles away. Like, how is that program going to get back there? So what Tony has done in the short time that he's been here, I guess it's not really that short now that it's 6-7 years, but how quickly, I guess, he built it to what he has and how consistent it's been and how the crazy clip at which they win and compete for SEC titles and compete for Omaha trips. That's crazy to watch, and it's crazy for me to wrap my mind around because of the Tennessee baseball I was around back in the day. Softball is kind of softball. You kind of expect that. I think Rick Barnes has taken, and that's a credit to softball, not to take anything away, because they've been so good for so long. Rick Barnes, what he's done, it's going to be hard for the next guy, whoever that is down the road, to replicate what Rick's done, because they've been they've been top 4 in the SEC. They've been top 4 seed in NCAA tournaments. They've gone back to an Elite 8, Sweet 16, stuff like that. And it feels like the next step, and the biggest one you have to take is football. Like, football's in a great place. Like, Josh Heupel, compared to what he took over in January 2021, it felt like it was going to take forever to get them competitive. And he flipped it pretty quick, and it's been a really fun ride. And they got, Nico, the era starting this year, and then quarterbacks committed down. Like, it feels like they're going to be in a good place for a long time, but it feels like their next step is competing for an SEC title. And that's the biggest step, because the SEC football landscape is so tough, so crazy tough, and it's going to be hard to get there. But the fact that they're in that conversation is a big deal. And just kind of the across the board success. I mean, you look at the Lady Vol basketball program; it's fresh start, and how long does it take Kim Caldwell to be able to build a winner? She's won everywhere she's been. You would assume she's going to win here based on her track record. But what they're doing, baseball, softball, basketball, to be the first to ever do that in the SEC is a wild stat to try to think about.
When you're hiring for small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs, they've got the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just like any other job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open for the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're probably looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses can get qualified candidates within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional by using LinkedIn. Why? Well, 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for their hiring practices. So why aren't you as well? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they do apply. All right, welcome back in here to your Monday edition of Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you for joining me here today and making Locked On Vols your first listen on your way to work. Maybe as you're working out, maybe you're putting off work, sitting in that cubicle, whatever the case may be. I really, really do appreciate you. And if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you want to bring your knowledge and or questions to the show, Twitter Tuesday, X Tuesday, that's happening tomorrow. So get those in there at _Caner and at Locked On Vols. Tennessee baseball is co-SEC champions for the regular season with Kentucky, both finishing the SEC slate with 22-8 records. And I know there's been a lot of conflicting things out there, but this is how it works. Just like in basketball, you can share the SEC regular season title, but the tiebreaker goes into effect for the seeding in the SEC tournament. So Kentucky and Tennessee are both co-SEC champions in the regular season. Still counts the same. You still put it on the banner and all that. Nothing changes, okay? But Tennessee owns the tiebreaker with Kentucky because it won in 2 games to 3 fashion back in April on the road in Lexington. So Tennessee's going to enter Hoover, and I'll get to that more in segment 3, but Tennessee's going to enter Hoover in the SEC tournament as the number 1 seed, but Tennessee wrapped up the SEC tournaments, or the SEC regular season, as co-champions, sweeping South Carolina, and Vanderbilt actually had Tennessee's back and took down Kentucky in the season finale, and that allowed Tennessee and Kentucky to finish with identical records. So what does this mean after yet another SEC championship? Well, we often throw the phrase around all everything school. You know, Danny White and his staff and a lot of people at the university and a lot of fans have kind of been taking that and running with it. And sure, it's cool to say and all that, but when you kind of break down, to get down to the nitty-gritty to see, well, does that have any merit? It's got plenty of merit. Look at this right now. Volleyball went to the Sweet 16. Okay, not just revenue sports, non-revenue sports and alike. Football, 9 wins, including a Citrus Bowl win, and of course what you did last year coming off an 11-win season and an Orange Bowl victory. Basketball, regular season champions, won it outright and went to the Elite 8. Softball, regular season champions, and of course is still continuing on through regional play right now. You've got baseball, who is regular season champions and about to go to the SEC tournament and could very well be the number 1 overall seed heading into regional play. So that's still ongoing, but regular season champions. Women's tennis, their season just came to an end, but reached the Final Four. Women's tennis went to the Final Four over the weekend. What a season. Men's tennis went to the Elite Eight. The Elite Eight. Men's golf, first ever number one seed in NCAA championships, one of 30 qualifying teams. So men's golf is doing its thing. Cross country, both the men and the women were NCAA regional champions. The women finished 6th nationally. The men finished 26th nationally after advancing out of regions. In swimming, the women finished 2nd in the SEC. The men finished 5th. Men finished 6th in the NCAA tournaments. The women finished 4th nationally. So there's some merit here to saying that it's an all-everything school. Not just football, not just basketball, but you've got tennises, you've got swimmings, you've got golfs, you've got cross countries, you got track and field. I mean, you've got pretty much you have so many teams that comprise the Tennessee Athletics brand that are just performing so well at a high level. And so I want to ask the question, are we in the golden age of Tennessee athletics? Think about that here for a moment. Well, my first instinct would be no. And why is that? Well, championships. How many championships have these teams won? Well, there's been plenty of SEC championships, and that's fair. And that's very relevant. And it does mean something, and I think that is important when we're discussing and having this conversation. But I think for us, in order to get into that golden age of Tennessee athletics, we've got to get some natties, right? We got to get some natties. Think about where the athletics program was in '98. Obviously, Tennessee won a national championship in football. Where women's basketball was at that point in time. Tennessee, I believe, won the SEC regular season or tournament. What tournament? They haven't won that since 1977, before last year. Won the SEC regular season in basketball. Think about the early 2000s when Tennessee was winning so many different, highly intense big-time football games and football matchups, where the Lady Vols basketball program was winning national championships with Pat Summitt. Think about where softball's been, with Monica Abbott. And, of course, Lady Vols softball went to the College World Series last year. We'll see what they do this year. But in my opinion, you got to win some natties. So which of these teams is best situated to go and win a national championship first? Is it football? Expanded 12-team college football playoff? Sure, there's an opportunity and there's a chance, and that's a whole lot of fun to sit there and think about, and we'll see. Is it men's basketball? You're kind of hitting the reset every single year now with the NCAA transfer portal, and who knows what this team's going to be. You've got a good basis with the guy Ziegler and Javon Meshack and some others, and of course you like some pieces that have come in through the transfer portal, but it's a brand new team essentially, so I have no clue. I thought Tennessee's team last year had the best opportunity because you were built on the backs of fifth-year seniors. Then, of course, you had a National Player of the Year and a guy and Dalton Knecht that just came out of nowhere. But we'll see. Nobody knew who Dalton Knecht was this time last year. So, we'll see. Is it baseball, where I love this baseball team? We'll continue to talk about it in segment number 3, but I love this offense. I love some of the pitching. I still have questions about the depth of the pitching, but so far it's not been an issue for Tennessee. But it's so incredibly difficult just to get to Omaha. And then once you get to Omaha, you gotta reset and do it again. You gotta win your little mini regional and then win a best of a two games out of 3 series to be national champions. It is so difficult. So I don't know. We'll see. Is it softball, who could very easily go back to Omaha this year, or not Omaha, Oklahoma City? We'll see. Is it going to be tennis, who, again, Final Four, Elite Eight, super close? Is it going to be cross country or swimming, super close? Is it going to be some of these other programs, volleyball? I don't know. Across the board, Tennessee is so good and so close right now. I do think Tennessee needs to win a national championship, and preferably it would be great if it was in one of the Big Four. But we'll see. I mean, there's no reason not to think that this age in college athletics right now isn't something to be proud of, because it certainly is. Danny White's is doing a fantastic job. These coaches are doing a fantastic job. I think to take Tennessee to that next level, though, for sure. I mean, Tennessee's still an all-everything school, but to get some, not merit, because I think that's the wrong word, but to solidify your standings as not one of the best athletic programs in the country, but, the best athletic program in the country. Let's go win some natties, and you're close right here. We'll see what baseball, softball does. We'll see what football does in the coming years. Basketball continues to be close. Go win some natties and truly be an all-everything school. I love the SEC championships. I love the Elite Eights. I love the Sweet 16s, and those are all super impressive. And I'm not trying to act like those are not important because they are so very important. Let's go win some natties. I think Tennessee is closer now than it's truly ever been across the board. And once that happens, I truly think we're going to sit back and say, man, 20, 30 years from now, man, what a run for Tennessee athletics. I remember that. I mean, we still will, but wouldn't it be great to sit back there and say, man, yeah, they finally got that championship. Yeah, they won that natty. Heck yeah, Tony Vitello and the boys vindicated the 2022 team 2 years later. You know what I'm saying? Like, wouldn't it be awesome to sit back and think about that 20, 30 years down the line? We will see. But, man, everything, 100%. This athletic department is just on fire right now. Just on fire. Hey, talking about who's on fire, Tennessee baseball. We'll discuss the latest in Tennessee baseball. That is coming up next. We continue on here with a Monday Locked On Vols. It's a winner-take-all time in the NBA and the NHL. FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home the big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon where you can make every single playoff shot count. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sports book, and you can get in on that fun right now if you're a new customer. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. 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 FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, Tennessee baseball is your 2024 co-SEC regular season champion, sharing it with the Kentucky Wildcats, but it all counts the same. The year still goes on the banner, and more importantly, Tennessee owns the tiebreaker, so the Volunteers are going to be the number one seed heading into the SEC tournament in Hoover. What is this? What is this in the grand scheme of things in terms of the SEC championship number for Tennessee? Well, it is the 5th conference championship for Tennessee in program history, the first since 2022. It also secured the 9th SEC East Divisional title in program history, again the first since 2022. The Vols win the East in its final year of existence, of course, as divisions. They're going to go away next year in baseball as well, as the conference expands to 16 teams and welcoming in Texas and Oklahoma. The Vols this week in Hoover will be looking to secure their 5th ever SEC tournament championship. It'll be their 20th appearance all time in the tournament in the current format, and it'll be the second time it's the number 1 seed in its current format. Tennessee's now won the SEC East title for the 3rd time in 4 seasons. For the past 4 seasons, that's called efficiency. Prior to Tony Vitello's tenure here on Rocky Top, it's also, take away Tony Vitello, what he's done in the last couple of years here at Tennessee. It would be the first SEC regular season and Eastern Divisional title since 1997, when Tennessee was co-champions of the league. So, Tennessee's going to be number 1 in the conference tournaments. Open play on Wednesday in Hoover, about 5:30 Eastern time for the 3rd game of the day, the first game of the second session. The Volunteers contest is going to be televised on the SEC Network. They will play the winner of the 8-seed Vanderbilt, the 9-seed Florida. They are going to go at it on Tuesday. The winner of that game moves on to face Tennessee. The loser of that game goes home. It just kind of goes to show you how deep this conference is whenever you have Vanderbilt and Florida essentially playing a play-in game to stay alive in the SEC tournament. So Tennessee, SEC champions, taking down South Carolina by a final score of 4-1 on Saturday, finishing the series sweep and the regular season finale. Tennessee finishes the regular season 46-10, 22-8 in SEC play, a record of 35-3 at home. 35-3 at home. Man, that's pretty good, right? And 2 of those are midweek losses, right? No, one of those is a midweek loss. Anyway, Tennessee was also 9-6 away from the friendly confines of Lindsey Nelson Stadium. This is a very, very good baseball team, and Christian Moore has officially won the SEC's Triple Crown inside league play, meaning he led the SEC with a .429 batting average. He led the SEC with 20 home runs. Again, all these in the 30 SEC games, not overall, in the 30 SEC games. And he led the SEC with 40, actually tied for the SEC lead with 41 RBI with Charlie Condon, who Charlie Condon is going to be the National Player of the Year. Charlie Condon of Georgia is going to be the SEC Player of the Year. But truly, if we're voting on SEC Player of the Year, where should the emphasis lie? Overall body of work? Or should the emphasis lie on what you did in the 30 Southeastern Conference conference games? I'm an idiot. SEC games. It's up to the value of the voter, right? You know, what's valuable to the voter? I don't know. My emphasis would be more on what you did in SEC games, which, of course, what Charlie Condon did in SEC games was incredible. What Christian Moore did was better. He was better than Jack Caglione. So the SEC awards are going to come out later today here on a Monday. Charlie Condon's going to be SEC Player of the Week or Player of the Year. I wrote a story over the weekend making the case for Christian Moore to be SEC Player of the Year. It won't matter, but Christian Moore will be a first-team All-SEC recipient. I assume that Blake Burke and Billy Amick will be All-SEC. Dean Curley will be the Freshman of the Year, potentially. He'll be a Freshman All-American for sure. We'll see if Dylan Dreiling gets anything. AJ Causey. I'm expecting a busy layout regarding Tennessee with the All-SEC team. So Tennessee starts play at Hoover on Wednesday. And again, it's you want to go out there, and I wrote a story about this over at VolQuest.com that came out Sunday morning. You want to go out there and you want to compete, but in the grand scheme of things, this tournament means nothing for a team like Tennessee. It means nothing. Tennessee's a top 8 lock, meaning Tennessee's going to host a regional. Tennessee, if it makes it out of that regional, Tennessee will host a super regional. Tennessee is a top 8 locked. In fact, Tennessee's in contention to be the number 1 overall seed. Now, you win the SEC regular season. We'll see what you do in Hoover. Your number 1 ranked team across the board in all the national polls. It feels like they could be the number 1 ranked overall team in the country heading into postseason play to be the number 1 overall seed. We'll see what the committee does. They weigh heavily RPI. They weigh heavily strength of schedule. And though Tennessee's RPI and strength of schedule are very, very good, Kentucky's is better. You know what I'm saying? Some other teams are better that are deserving as well. And honestly, guys, Tennessee fans, you don't want Tennessee to be the number 1 overall seed. Why? Well, because it's been since, 2000, whatever it is. Miami was the last team that does it. There's been, quote unquote, a curse for the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They have not won a College World Series. Look at Tennessee, the greatest regular season team ever in the sport in 2022, and it didn't even reach it to Omaha. So not being the number 1 overall seed, that is okay if you ask me. That is okay. But Tony Vitello, he essentially has a checklist. He wants to get some guys work. He wants to get A.J. Russell back out there, who A.J. Russell will pitch at Hoover. Tony Vitello said that he's going to pitch for them sooner or later. And everybody I've talked to, he's in line. I would say that he's going to probably start that Wednesday game, but we'll see. A.J. Russell should be coming back and seeing some time in Hoover. But this is what Tony Vitello said. I think this comment, this quote is pretty telling on how coaches view the SEC tournament. Quote, "You always want to compete, and when you step on that field, but we want to manage it the right way. We're in a different spot than we were last year for sure. And then this year's unique under its own." And I guess what I'm getting at is we've already met as a coaching staff, and there's certain things we want to make sure we accomplish while we're there. So you'd like to win, but you'd also like to check those boxes. In other words, Tony Vitello says, hey, we're going to go out there and compete because we're Warriors, but our main objective is not staying there till Sunday and winning every single game. Our main objective is seeing what A.J. Causey looks like, getting Marcus Phillips some work, getting Dylan Loy some work, getting Andrew Binky some work, continuing to see if Dalton Bargo can be your everyday DH, checking those boxes, getting ready for the games that actually matter, and that's regional play. And I mean no disrespect because I've already said on this show that I think conference championship matters. That's true, but this tournament doesn't matter for Tennessee. It doesn't. Look, last year, you went and picked up your 16th SEC victory which was great. Okay, you went one and done in Hoover. Didn't matter. Why? You went to Omaha. Who cares? You have already locked up a hosting site for regional and supers. This means nothing, in my opinion, except checking those boxes. Tony Vitello goes on to say, I think it's possible to scheme and check those boxes and still go out there and compete. So if you're scheming ahead of time, whether it's pitch counts or to make sure you get guys a good outing or a good at bat, at no point should that guy or you not be pushing forward to win the ball game. But I think you can do both. And because it's not do or die tournament, fortunately, because our guys have had some success, I think you can do that, meaning Tennessee is not in the single elimination round on Tuesday like it was last year. It automatically goes to the double elimination round on Wednesday. If it wins both Wednesday and Thursday, it goes to the semifinals. And, of course, that's when it goes back to single elimination. So Tennessee baseball is in a good position to check those boxes, to formulate a plan, all that. And that's kind of what Tony Vitello was saying Saturday after the game, amongst other things. He talked about A.J. Russell, talked about winning an SEC title, talked about the fan base. A lot of good stuff over at VolQuest.com, and something that should be celebrated as this baseball team and the continued success under Tony Vitello. We'll see what Tennessee does in Hoover. Of course, I'll be over there all week long. You can follow my coverage over at VolQuest.com, and we'll talk a little bit about it here on Locked On Vols. But Tennessee baseball, SEC regular season champions, going into the SEC tournament as the number 1 overall seed. Quite an accomplishment. Hey guys, appreciate you for being here. Get in those questions, those comments for your Twitter Tuesday coming up tomorrow at _Caner and at Locked On Vols. Appreciate you every day for being here, and let's do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.